All right, today we're jumping right into the 5 whys. This is one of the most powerful diagnostic techniques out there, the exact method world-class consultants use to slice through all the surface-level noise and get right to the core of any problem.
So to really master this, you've got to start with a big shift in how you think. It's about stopping, seeing problems as these one-off events. Instead, you need to start seeing them for what they really are, symptoms of a much deeper, interconnected system.
At its heart, root cause analysis is basically an investigative technique. And honestly, this is what separates the amateurs from the pros. Amateurs just treat the symptoms, they slap a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. But the professionals, they engineer a real transformation because they find the source of the problem.
And that brings us to this critical distinction. A client might come to you with a stated need, that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Something like, I need more revenue. But the whole goal of the 5 whys is to dive below the surface and uncover their real need, which, trust me, is almost never what they first say it is, but it's way, way more powerful.
And this is exactly why you can never accept the first answer you get. It's not the destination, it's just the starting line. A great way to think of it is as a false mask. It's the socially acceptable reason that's hiding a much deeper, more potent truth. Our entire job is to gently, carefully peel that mask away.
So how do we actually do this? Let's get into the process itself. This journey from symptom to root cause, well, it isn't random. It has a very clear, very strategic structure that you can follow every single time.
The whole thing unfolds in 3 stages. First, you've got the focal point. That's the initial problem they bring you. Then you move into the investigation. This is where you start asking why over and over again to find the real patterns. And this is where the magic happens, where you shift the conversation from just a business goal to a really powerful personal one. And finally, you get to the discovery, the hot button, that core emotional driver you were looking for all along.
Now, during that investigation phase, there is one absolutely critical rule you have to follow. It's called the spotlight rule. And it's simple. The spotlight must always be on the client, their world, their problems, their reality. The second you pivot and start talking about your product, your solution, well, the spotlight swings over to you and the entire diagnostic process just dies on the spot.
And this is why that discovery stage is just so incredibly powerful. You're not just dealing with business logic anymore, you're tapping into a fundamental human emotion. In fact, research shows that the fear of loss is 2.5 times more motivating than the desire for gain. So a lot of the time, the true root cause isn't about achieving some big goal. It's about avoiding a deep, deep fear.
Okay, theory is great, but let's make this real. We're going to walk through, step by step, exactly how the 5 whys plays out in a real-world scenario. So, our investigation kicks off with a clear focal point. The client comes in and says, I want to make $100,000 this year. This is it. This is the first layer of the onion, the stated need. So naturally, we ask our first why. And the answer we get is, well, I've never made that much before. Okay, that's a fact, sure, but it tells us nothing about their motivation. It's a classic false mask. We've got to dig deeper. So we ask again, and why is making that amount so important to you now? And the answer we get next, it changes the entire game. I need to regain custody of my children. And just like that, boom, we've leaped from a generic business goal to something incredibly personal. We are getting so much warmer. So the next question connects the money to a very specific action. Why would making $100,000 help you with that? The answer? I need to move them to a better part of town. And why that part of town? Because my current neighborhood has drive-by shootings. Whoa, the emotional weight of that is just immense. You realize this isn't about status or a nicer house. This is about life or death safety.
And there you have it. In just 4 questions, we've found the real need. This has absolutely nothing to do with a 6-figure salary. The root cause, that hot button, is about primal security and the terrifying fear of a child being harmed. You're no longer selling a career plan. You're selling safety and a future for a family. See the difference?
Okay, so seeing how powerful this is one thing, but actually executing it effectively is a whole other ballgame. So let's talk about the specific tactics for really mastering this technique. So how do you do this the right way? First, use little probing questions like, how do you mean? To get them to go beyond those surface answers. But you know what? The most powerful tool is often just silence. After they answer, just pause. Wait for 3, 4, even 5 seconds. It's in that quiet space that the real truth often comes out. It's about listening so deeply that you can actually work backward from their ultimate goal and perfectly align your solution with what they truly need.
And now, let's look at the common traps, the rookie mistakes that can completely derail this process. The biggest one? Feature dumping. Just jumping in with your solution after the very first why. Also, never ever assign blame to a person. The focus is always on the process. And please remember, raw data like clicks on a website can tell you what is happening, but it can never ever tell you the human why behind it.
All right, to finish up, let's pull all of this together into a strategic framework you can actually use to guide your own investigations. Think of this matrix as your roadmap. It walks you all the way from layer 1, the surface-level symptom, where you're just identifying a KPI, down through their process, their system, and their own logic, until you finally hit layer 5, the core. And that's where you ask the big question. Why is this truly essential to you? And that is how you uncover that emotional hot button.
You know, Simon Sinek famously said, "People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it." That quote really captures the entire philosophy here. The 5 whys is the practical, hands-on tool that lets you discover that deeper why. It's what moves you from just selling a product to connecting with a fundamental human motivation.
And ultimately, that's the real goal, isn't it? Like Peter Drucker said, the aim is to understand your customer so profoundly, so deeply, that your solution becomes the only logical choice. It just sells itself. Because you didn't just solve their stated problem, you went deeper and addressed their real underlying need.